Okay, welcome back to the next lesson. This lesson's all about visualization. And before I begin, I just want to clear up a few misconceptions here. So, you might be thinking when you hear visualization that this is something that you're not going to have time to do. Maybe, you've got to sit down, lay back, close your eyes for 30 minutes, visualize. You might think, yeah, that's just not for me. Well, I'm not going to tell you to do that. You absolutely don't have to do that. Whether you realize it or not, you're already using visualization. We all do. A lot of our thinking is done in pictures. So if I asked you to picture your car, picture the first car you ever drove, or to picture the color of the door on the house that you grew up in, or if I asked you to picture your favorite shirt, picture your favorite store, you can get these images on the screen of your mind, kind of like watching a movie, right? So we already use visualization, whether you realize it or not. And just like your self-talk, how we said in the last lesson that to a large extent you can start taking back control over your self-talk, you can start doing the same with mental pictures as well. And it's really easy. So I'm not going to tell you to do some long drawn-out visualization process that takes a lot of time. In this lesson, we're going to go over a couple exercises, and they're really going to help you out because in order to achieve any goal, in this case, the purpose of this course is to get you over any time management stumbling blocks that you have so that you can manage your time more effectively, get what you need to done faster, have more free time, and ultimately achieve your goals faster and more easily. And in order to do that, it's important to have a clear picture of the end result. And when you have a clear picture of the end result, figuring out how you're going to get there becomes a lot easier. So that's where we're at, and visualization is a tried and true, proven technique that many high achievers swear by, such as Michael Phelps, who, as you may already know, is the most decorated Olympian of all time. And Michael Phelps is well known to have regularly done a proven type of visualization known as mental rehearsal. So Phelps' Olympic coach, Bob Bowman, said the following, "For months," and this is a quote, "For months before a race, Michael gets into a relaxed state. He mentally rehearses for 2 hours a day in the pool. He sees himself winning. He smells the air, tastes the water, hears the sound, sees the clock." Now, it's hard to argue with success, especially at the level that Michael Phelps has had it. So, again, very hard to argue with all these Olympic gold medals. So just keep that in mind. Michael Phelps is one example of, an extreme achiever who has used visualization. In this case, according to his coach, he used mental rehearsal for 2 hours a day in the pool. Now, I don't have time to do this for 2 hours a day. You probably don't either, but hopefully you're getting the point. Now, another famous person who has openly talked about using visualization before is the actor Jim Carrey, who was a favorite of mine when I was younger. Haven't really seen any good movies with him in them lately, but when I was younger, I liked him. But anyway, he did an interview with Oprah, which I'll link to down below. You can watch it on YouTube for free. And in the interview, he says that he used visualization and helped give him an extra edge. But he also adds in the interview that you can't just visualize and then go eat a sandwich. And that's a kind of a funny way of saying that, you can't just visualize and expect that it's going to be a magic bullet. You're still going to have to put in the work, just with the self-talk. And just with having positive beliefs, that alone is not going to get you there, but having a clear picture, visualizing, it helps train your mind to take the action that you need at the right times to get the goal that you want. Okay, so the next question that we need to answer here is how do you use visualization? And we already talked about mental rehearsal, so there's actually some studies that show how mental rehearsal is effective. So there was a study done at the University of Chicago. This is a pretty famous study, and there were three groups of participants in the study. Now, the first, and it involved basketball and shooting free throws. So one group were told to practice shooting basketball free throws for an hour a day, every single day. And the second group was told to simply visualize themselves making free throws. And a third group was told to do nothing, to just relax. They weren't told to practice basketball, and they weren't told to visualize themselves practicing basketball either. So 30 days went by, and the participants were tested to see how they did in basketball. Now, the first group, the group that had practiced shooting free throws for an hour a day, every single day, it showed a 24% improvement in their ability. Now the second group, and keep in mind, the second group they didn't actually practice basketball. For 30 days, they never touched a basketball. They just visualized themselves practicing shooting free throws and visualized themselves making the free throws. And this group showed an improvement of 23% without even touching a basketball. So again, the group that practiced, that actually did the physical practice, improved by 24%, and the group that used the visualization had a 23% increase in their free throw ability. So it's pretty clear from the study here that the people that were shooting and the people that just visualized themselves shooting, there actually wasn't a huge difference in their approval. And of course, the third group that did nothing, they showed no improvement, as we would expect. So another study was done at Harvard Medical School, and this one involved playing the piano. So the researcher had half the group practice piano playing exercises, and the other half of the group, they just played the music in their head, so to speak. They just thought about practicing and visualized themselves practicing. And so after a certain period of time, what they did was they used what's called transcranial magnetic stimulation tests. And basically they used that just to look at the region in the brain's motor cortex that's involved with finger movements in playing the piano. So that's kind of a fancier way of saying that they basically did a brain scan, and they noticed that the part of the brain that is involved with the fine motor skills in playing the piano had expanded or strengthened in both groups. So they showed that the practice, whether it was the actual practice or the visualized practice, actually helped rewire the neural connections in the brain. So, the area in the brain involved with playing the piano actually expanded in the group that actually physically practiced playing the piano, and in the group that didn't, the group that just thought about playing the piano, right? So I think that these are two pretty significant studies. So one way that you can use mental rehearsal, one thing that I do, it doesn't take very long. At the end of the day, let's say it's before you go to sleep, you write out your to-do list and review your schedule for the following day. And then what I do sometimes is I'll just take maybe 3 to 5 minutes, or even 10 minutes if it's like I have a really busy day, I have a lot of important stuff to do, but I'll just take some time and just visualize myself going through the next day, right? I'll look at my to-do list, review my obligations, and I'll just visualize myself doing really well. I'll try to anticipate any roadblocks or challenges that might come up, and I try to visualize myself overcoming them. And I just kind of run through my plan for the next day in my head and just visualize everything going as planned, everything falling into place. Like I said, it doesn't take very long to do. So that's one way you can use mental rehearsal and time management. And again, we're going to go into this more later. Specific techniques you can use for managing your to-do list, planning your day. We'll get into that stuff later, but for now, if you make to-do lists and you go through them, you can always try mental rehearsal. You can do it at the beginning of the day too. If you wake up and then you make your to-do list, you can do it then too. But the point is that you can just quickly mentally run through what you have coming up and visualize yourself doing well. You don't even have to shut your eyes necessarily. You can if you want, but you just take a couple minutes. You can be 10 minutes, 15 minutes, even 20. There's really no time limit, but just see yourself doing well, see yourself rising to the occasion in any challenging situations. And one thing that you always want to do is be specific, be as detailed as possible with your visualization. So at first, when you first start doing this, it might be kind of hard. You're just going to kind of see vague images, that's okay at first. But you want to try to add in details. What are you wearing? What color is your shirt? What kind of shirt? What does the fabric look like? What kind of shoes are you wearing? What do your shoelaces look like? You want to get as detailed as possible, and you want to try to engage all the senses. So you want to think about, hey, how do I feel? What do I hear? What do I taste? If there's taste involved, I don't know if you're, drinking a drink, or if there's taste involved for whatever reason, what does it smell like? You want to try to engage as many senses as possible to create as realistic of a picture as possible, and you're kind of basically priming your brain to then go and do the things. So you create the picture of your day going really well, and then it doesn't guarantee that your day is going to go well, but when you get into those situations where you see roadblocks, stumbling blocks that come up, you're going to overcome them. You're more likely to because you've mentally practiced overcoming them. So that's one little exercise that you can do. And so now we're going to go through 3 guided exercises just to show you how easily visualization can be. And this isn't something where you're going to have to blindfold yourself, lay back, shut your eyes, nothing like that. Don't worry about anything like that. What we're just going to do is we're going to kind of build mental pictures by doing 3 simple exercises. So you can pull out a sheet of paper, and for each of the 3 exercises, write out maybe 3 to 5 sentences or more, or you can do them in your head. It doesn't really matter. The point is you want to think about your answers to these questions and try to add as much detail as possible. Just form a mental picture and add as much detail as possible, and it's going to help you because what we're doing here is you're forming a clear picture of the end result of being good at time management, of what you want to accomplish, and that's going to help you figure out how to get there. So the first exercise is to imagine that you have more than enough time to get everything that you need to do done. How would your life change? Imagine that you have more than enough time to get everything you need to do done. How would your life change? So tomorrow, let's say that, everything on your to-do list, you just have the time to get it all done. You don't have to worry about finding time. You don't have to worry about running out of time. All those problems are over. You have more than enough time to do everything that you want on your schedule, and also in your leisure time, any activities that you want to do, things that you thought about for a while that you wanted to do but you haven't done. Everything is solved. Everything is resolved. There aren't any conflicts. You just have more than enough time. So just imagine this. What would this feel like? How would you feel if all of a sudden today or tomorrow everything was solved, right? You had no more problems with time management. You had all the time you need. And how would you behave? How would your behavior change? How would you feel? How would you act differently? What would this look like? What would this feel like? And, what would it sound like? Maybe you're playing happy music, playing upbeat music, your favorite songs, because you're just so carefree about time. So take a couple minutes here. You can pause the video if you want, but just think about this question here and kind of build a picture. Write out maybe 3 to 5 sentences. Writing it out by hand is going to be the best, but if you want, you can just think about it in your head. It doesn't really matter, but the point is you're thinking about your answer to this question, and you're visualizing what it would look like, thinking about how it would feel like, and how it would sound, taste, if there's taste involved. Doesn't really matter. Try to engage as many senses as you can. And we're going to go on now to the next exercise, but if you want, you can pause the video, take more time to think about it if you need to. Okay, so the second exercise is imagine being at least 3 times as productive as you are now. How would your life change? Imagine being at least 3 times as productive as you are right now. How would your life change? What would this feel like? What would it look like? And how would your behavior change? What would it sound like? So really put yourself, it can help sometimes to just imagine you're in a movie theater or you're sitting back on your couch watching a TV screen, and you're the star in the show. You're watching yourself on the screen, and you're now 3 times as productive as you've ever been, right? So you see yourself going throughout the day, and you're just getting 3 times as much stuff done. You're an animal. You're a monster. You're absolutely crushing it. You're just going through the day, just everything in your path. You're just demolishing it. Any obstacles, you're just jumping right over them. You're just going right through them. If you see a wall that pops up in your way, you just blast right through it or hop over it. There's nothing holding you back now. You're achieving at a level that's at least 3 times what you are now. So how would this change your life? What would this feel like? What would it look like? How would you behave? Think about this one, because this is something that can be a reality for you, right? So add as much detail as you can into the picture. Write it out, 3 to 5 sentences at least, or just do it in your head. That's fine too. It doesn't really matter. Whatever's easiest for you, whatever you're comfortable with. The point again is that you do the exercise and however you want to do it, but just think about the answer to this question, because this can be a reality to you, and we need to form a clear picture of this, because hopefully by the end of the course, you'll see how you can make this a reality to be at least 3 times as productive as you are now. Okay, here's the last exercise. So imagine looking back on this exact moment a year from today. What have you accomplished? Imagine looking back on this moment a year from now. What have you accomplished? How do you feel? What does it look like? How are you behaving differently? Okay, and so if you don't have a clear idea of what goals you want to achieve over the next year, that's okay. Um, but it's something to start thinking about. Looking back a year from now, what all have you accomplished? And again, if you don't have clear goals laid out for the following year, that's perfectly fine. That's okay. We're going to have an important video on goal setting coming up very shortly. Or maybe you do if you want to in the next year. Maybe it's your senior year of college, you're graduating, you want to graduate with honors, or I don't know if you're studying for a test. A year from now you'll have that test done, and what would your score be? So this is just something to think about. So start thinking about what you can accomplish in the next year and really just take the lid off your mind. There's no right or wrong answer here. Don't worry about what you've done in the past. Just imagine that you've made this the best year ever. It's the most productive year, and you achieved way more than you ever thought that you could. All right, and so those are your 3 exercises. So if you haven't done them yet, as I was talking about them, please, before you go on to the next video, just take the time. It doesn't have to be very long, 5-10 minutes at most here. And again, you can put as much time as you want into these. It doesn't really matter, but just do something. Start thinking about these because, again, by forming this picture, it's going to help you get into the mind state to make it a reality. So imagining yourself having just a dominant year as far as success goes, and it can be in your relationships too, you can imagine that you formed really great relationships, friendships. You've got along really well with professors or teachers, mentors, other people like that. It doesn't have to be just time management goals either or academic goals. You can think about what do you want to accomplish health-wise, financially, fitness-wise, socially. It doesn't really matter. Just start thinking about what you could accomplish. And again, don't worry about what you've done in the past. Don't even worry about how you're going to get there. Just start thinking about these kind of things, because by doing this, by visualizing yourself already there, putting in as much detail as possible, it helps you get into the mindset that you need to be in to make it a reality, right? And so your mindset is so important with time management. You might think to yourself, wow, I don't know if I can ever become 3 times as more productive as I am now, right? But the thing is, that's a mindset. That's a limiting belief. You might think that you're really productive right now, and I'm sure you are. I'm sure that you do work hard. I'm sure that you are diligent. That's why you're here, right? You wouldn't be doing a course like this if you weren't interested in improving. But if the thought of becoming 3 times more productive without necessarily even working that much harder, right? The thought of being able to get 3 times as much done now, you might be thinking, well, that's impossible. I'll never accomplish that. But, my challenge to you is to ask yourself if that's a mindset, is that a limiting belief, or is that reality? And you're probably going to find, if you really stir over this, think about it, ponder it, kick it around in your head, you're probably going to find that, hey, maybe it is a limiting belief. Maybe it's not fully true, and you might think, well, becoming 3 times as more productive as I am now, I don't think I could do that, but maybe I can double my productivity. Hey, that's a great goal right there. If you double your productivity, you're going to be in great shape. So, again, just start visualizing what if these things were reality. And so those are your 3 exercises. I'll see you in the next lesson.